What's your read on Auston Matthews? I know you guys debated this on your show the other day.
Well, I just keep going by what CJ says, Chris Johnston. Just shameless plug here on SDPN with the Chris
I like
Johnston
it.
show. He's been convinced for a very long time that this is getting done. Obviously, the Leafs firing their GM heading into the most important and volatile 5-6 week period in the franchise's recent history seems like kind of not a recipe for success. But he's convinced it's going to get done. And I just want to know what he knows, because on the surface, yeah, if he doesn't sign in the next few weeks, you have no choice but to explore the idea of life without him.
What's your blood pressure at these days, Steve?
So, of all my health issues, blood pressure is not one of them. And every time I go to the doctor and they say it's good, I go, really? Everything else, neck, back, shoulder, it's all screwed up. But apparently the blood sugar and the blood pressure for some reason are always fine.
You're very calm,
Shouldn't
and
be.
it's almost like you deserve to have like a strawberry daiquiri while you do this broadcast and this interview with us. I appreciate your time today, bud. I mean, so much has happened the last couple weeks. I think we should start there. Team Dubas or Team Shanahan? What side are you on?
Oh boy, I think there's lots of blame to go around. What I keep coming away with is it feels like Shanahan gave Dubas the death penalty for petty theft. You know what I mean? Like it felt a little like an overreaction, and it just feels like uh, adults should have been able to come to a resolution here where Dubas would have got millions of dollars anyway, and Brendan Shanahan would have had a general manager in place for this year's draft, because even if they get Treliving, he's not going to be allowed to work the draft. The potential of trading Nylander or locking him up, the potential of trading Marner, the potential of trading Matthews or locking him up. It's just such an important period. And even if they get their guy, he's not even going to be able to do the full job until after July 1st, when it might already be too late. So I I guess if I had to pick a team, it's Dubas, but I don't really like either of those guys right now.
Fair. I
Understandable.
like it. Carter, you got a question?
Yeah. So looking at this with Shanahan now, obviously you got to put some blame on him with the way things have gone down. But to the fan side, how do we sell this to the fans to keep this core? Like, if you're moving together with this core and you're a fan, at some point you have to be like, something's got to change, right? I feel like I'm talking to my high school girlfriend, telling her I'm not going to go out, and text her after Friday night, and I end up calling her Sunday night, right? It seems like the same thing over and over and over again. And at some point, something has to change here, especially with the core four and what they have in the pipes. Like, what's the plan moving forward here?
I keep coming back to Dubas had a plan that was to keep these guys together. We can and we will. And a big giant wrench got thrown into that plan. And that was COVID. And the world stopped and the cap stopped going up. The keeping all those guys and giving them all that money was kind of contingent on, we're the Leafs, we're going to spend to the cap, and the cap is going to continue to go up. When the cap stopped going up, he didn't adjust. And literally the week he committed to potentially trading one of those guys, he was fired. And then again, Chris Johnston, comes out with the report that supposedly Shanahan reached out to all the core guys, and they left those conversations with the impressions that they're sticking around. So either the Leafs are going to do the definition of insanity and do the same thing over and over and over again and try to expect a different result, or one of these guys is going to end up moving, and they're going to feel pretty betrayed because the president of the hockey team called them, reassured them, and then gassed them.
Yeah, and the one One example I like to bring up is DeMar DeRozan, Masai Ujiri, and Kyle Lowry, where they're like, "Yeah, DeMar, you're going nowhere." Next thing you know, he's going to San Antonio. Kawhi Leonard comes in and they win. And the other one, of course, is Mark Bergevin and PK Subban from a couple years ago. I would never trust anybody on their word in the sports world, and if they are, then you're pretty much an idiot. Is there anybody who stands out for you, Steve, in terms of, just that makes so much sense to be the GM of this team? But for me, like, there really isn't anybody. I know Brad Treliving has been linked since day one, but is there anybody who stands out for you to be this GM?
I like the idea of Eric Tulsky. I don't know how well that'll play in the city because I think he's kind of billed as a numbers guy or an analytics guy, and I think the unfair thing is all guys who are like that think the exact same way about hockey, and I just don't
True.
think that's true. I think what sets teams back when they fire a GM is they have a GM, they let him do his plan for years and years. Then as soon as they fire him, they try to go in exactly the opposite direction. So your new guy is going to spend the next year or 2 years trying to undo everything the previous guy did. I just don't think that's a path forward to success. Like, the Leafs are reeling right now, but it's not like they suck. Like, they're not,
Yeah.
in the lottery conversation. So if they go from a guy like Dubas to a guy like Tulsky, who has a different background, he has a different hockey education, like he's coming up through the Hurricane system, and the Leafs like to play with the puck. The Hurricanes do a lot of playing without the puck, and they just have a different style, and he's been part of that management group that's helped bring in new guys and new blood. And every time a good player becomes available, they go to one of half a dozen teams, and the Hurricanes always seem to be involved in that. So I think he'd be a pretty good transition. And Treliving is so interesting because, I mean, the main point of support with him is, well, Calgary's ownership is so meddlesome that he wasn't allowed to really do his job. Meanwhile, we know anyone who comes to Toronto is going to have Shanahan and the board of MLSE breathing down their neck the whole time. So it's weird to me that Treliving would even want this gig, but here we are.
It's the Toronto Maple Leafs. Carter, you got one last question, bud?
Yeah. I think the other one for me is right now, like, we lose Canberra's out, Spencer's gone, and now, like, what happens with Keith? Does he stay? Does he go? I know it's getting late, and again, they're handcuffed with the GM, and now you have a coach that's, there's obviously a big question mark there, and I think it's something that you look at Florida, who changes coaches, and they had one heck of a season last year, and now they're in the Stanley Cup final.
Sometimes I think we overthink this whole hockey thing, because the Panthers spent less than 30% of the regular season in a playoff spot, and now here they are just wrecking shop. So, was it smart to hire Paul Maurice? Like, at the moment, no. Like, there was getting rid of Andrew Brunette after he went. I saw his record yesterday. I think it was 51-18-6, and they gassed him. Are you kidding? Because of one failed playoff round, and they bring in Paul Maurice. They back into the playoffs because the Penguins choked. Arrest the Pittsburgh Penguins for choking on that game against Chicago. So I know that's not quite answering your question. Sheldon Keefe's one of the winningest coaches by percentage in Maple Leafs history. And I think sometimes it's just good to get another set of eyes in there. The unfortunate thing is, one of the most ideal replacements for him, it sounds like he could be, the Washington Capitals head coach by the end of the day. So again, here's another key decision for the Leafs where it's like, man, it'd be great if they had a GM right now, and they don't.
It's so true. It's so true. I was going to leave with this, and I texted Elliot Friedman the other day to bring it up. The Leafs are to blame for this run for the Florida Panthers. I don't know if you recall this game. I'm pulling it up once again. It was March 29th. It was a Wednesday. The Leafs were up 2-1 in that hockey game. I think they surrendered a power play goal with like 59 seconds left. And Brandon Montour wins it in OT. And that was Alex Lyon's first game in that run, man. It just, the swing in points is so crazy in the regular season. To think the Florida Panthers might not even be here right now is crazy to me.
It's just wild. There's so many games in the regular season. I want to say there was a giveaway in a game against Carolina as well in the regular season. And yesterday on the
Mhm.
podcast, we went back and looked at their series against Boston. They should have lost in 5. Like, how on earth did you look at moments from Game 5, and they were losing in the third, and they took a penalty in the third, and they could have blown it. And Game 6 was 7-5, and Marchand had a breakaway or something at the end of Game 5, and they
Oh
were
yeah.
losing with under 90 seconds to go in Game 7. Again, like, sometimes I think we maybe overthink this whole hockey thing, and and we should just sit back and watch. And if you're running a team, here's the thing about the Cats: they're a bunch of dogs. They just work harder than you. They want it more than you. Just go out and get a bunch of psychos who are going to do any and everything to win a hockey game and hope for the best.
I feel like
That's the
there's a
truth.
potential you stole that from friend of the show, Johnny Lazarus, but we'll leave it at that. Here's a positive
What?
note to leave on. Yeah, he's been saying that for a couple weeks, buddy. He's been saying that for a
He
couple
has?
weeks. Yeah,
No. I'm going to put it on a shirt immediately. I'm stealing it.
do it. Then you own the rights. I'll leave you with this: the Golden Knights and Panthers, the past 2 NHL All-Star Game hosts, are in the Stanley Cup Final. Who's hosted next year's All-Star Game, Steve?
The Toronto Maple Leafs.
Let's
So, I
go,
mean,
baby.
it's guaranteed. Lock it in.
Put it on a t-shirt, Steve. Thank you so much for this, buddy.
Thank you.